methods, you learn new things, you learn, you acquire more knowledge. So as you do that process, as you go through that process, just know that you are becoming better and better. So don't be discouraged by whatever encounter that you go through, whatever discouragement may be along your business. Don't be discouraged. As long as you have passion for it, just know that you are going a step forward. So that didn't stop me. It encouraged me, and it gave me courage to even grow the number of beds that I started with, and I started growing beds time after time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Chancellor, just before you come in, and I think you being a professional, whenever there is a problem on the group, somebody will ask us a question saying, how do I deal with this mortality? We always encourage them to consult a vet. Surely you as a veterinary expert have never experienced mortality on your farm, right?
If I say so, Chair, and the rest of the people listening, then I'm a liar. In Swahili, we say niliwabongo. So I don't want to lie that we've never had challenges in terms of mortalities, disease coming in, even after all measures of biosecurity are done, the vaccination is done, biosecurity measures are implemented, but we still more have a disease coming into the farm. So I should not lie that we've never had mortalities. Mortalities are there, but we just try to keep them at a minimum so we don't lose out like what had happened previous. I think I explained that we had lost about 2,000 broilers from CRD, and that time we were dealing with the outgrower scheme. So it really had costed us, but let me not lie that we don't have mortalities. I think that would be unfair for those listening.
Okay, just staying on you, Mr. Chancellor, staying with you just a little bit longer. In your preamble, you mentioned that you started out with pigs and then you moved into broilers, but you moved out of broilers and now you're into layers predominantly. You only do broilers every now and then because broilers were not making that much business sense. In what way were broilers not making business sense? Because most of the people here are broiler farmers, and in which ways were broilers not making business sense?
Thank you so much, Chair. And mostly we used to keep a number of broilers even before they said outgrower scheme. And then the market that we had, the ready market was a Soweto market. If not Soweto, it was a SOS. If not SOS, it was Zingalume, which is the Tuesday market. So you find that you go to the market and the prices are not appealing to what you had prepared and all those things that you had put in place as to rear the chicken itself. Because what is cost? We used to cost of how much we spend in raising one broiler from day old up to 37, 38, 39 days, somewhere there. Now you look at all these things, then you find that the prices are low, and then the input that goes in is high. So like that, there are a lot of losses that we used to encounter. I'm not saying the profit is not there, but with us, we used to have those losses. Then we also have diseases coming on the farm. Then, broilers, when they don't finish, you have to return them to the farm. You separate them, they'll still eat your feed, but a layer, they'll eat your feed, and those eggs, since they're not fertilized, you can keep them for a month in the house until possibly maybe you find that the prices might have gone up a bit. You may even as you're trying to look for market, the eggs, you can keep them for so long before you dispose them off at maybe a giveaway price than the broilers, because we're not much into this. They said the value addition of trying to slaughter the chickens, put them in the fridge. With those, we're not much into that. So that's why the challenges were for me personally. So that's why we just said, I think let us just close down with this. Let's do this, which has been actually a positive, and it's something that is really, really like working very well for us without any much challenges.
All right, thank you very much. At this particular point in time, I'm looking at the people who are on the call, and I cannot see our third panelist. There was a lady, she's always here when we are having training, Mrs. Sharon, but today she's not here. She volunteered to take up the part talking about those who are in full time. They are not doing, they are not in employment. I need to correct myself whenever I'm talking about they're not employment. Those running a business is employment on its own. So the only employment that she has is running the business itself. So at this particular point in time, I'll ask, as I'm moving to the next question from Mrs. Chilwa, I'll ask if there's somebody who is in full-time poultry business. That is just what you do. You're just into full-time poultry business. Just send me a direct message. Just send a direct message to admin right now using the chat. Just send a direct message. I'll be able to see it, and then we'll chat the way forward. Just through a direct message, you'll see. I would like to learn even from those who are in and those who are doing poultry business only. How are they surviving? How is it? Is poultry business sustainable? We would like to learn those things as well. Mrs. Chilwa, there's a young lady. She's a nurse, and she's getting into this poultry farming business. She's been consulting with us for the past week, and her birds are coming in on Monday. Not sure if she has joined us today, but that's about somebody who is in the civil service and they're trying to start. What advice would you give to such a person? And there are other people who are in the civil service and they would also like to get into poultry farming. Through your experience, what advice would you give to such a person?
Thank you so much. I would encourage such a person to say, whenever you are venturing into any business, first and foremost, you need to look at your location where you are. Make an assessment of the market. When you make an assessment of the market and you see to say, okay, there's good market for my broilers here. Then you take a step further. You need to also assess yourself. A lot of times we like venturing into businesses because we heard someone else is doing well, because my colleague is doing well. Let me also venture into that. You need to make an assessment of yourself, because certain ventures, they really, really require much of your time. Certain ventures, they really, really require much of your input. So you need to look at the availability of yourself into that business. You need to be a hardworking person. You need to be, more especially if you are just a first starter. When you are just starting up a business, you need to make sure that you are that kind of a person who is who is ready to put in the very best into that business, more especially with poultry, because when you just bring the chicks when they're just maybe they are just arriving, there is a lot that has to be done. There's a lot that has to be done. You really need to be there at all times. You need to observe. You need to keep an eye of the birds. So if you really feel you cannot manage to spend much of the time in the poultry, you need to find an alternative to that. If you cannot find an alternative to that, then it will be difficult for you to run that business. So I would encourage my fellow civil servants to say, poultry is good. It's a good business, but you really need to be available for that business. You need to have a heart for that business. You know, a lot of our colleagues usually they are small starters. You know, you start with few beds, which is very okay. It is good. Start small. You know, don't wait for maybe huge capitals, big monies. Start small as a civil servant. Or maybe if you are in other maybe formal maybe informal employment, you can still start small. You know, what's important is for you to start something that you have passion for. If you have passion for poultry, start poultry, you know, but you really need to make sure that you have time to spend into your poultry. If you don't have time, you have maybe workers to help you into that poultry. Otherwise, you need to learn how to divide your time, how to spend your time into your business, so that you monitor your business. You see how your business is coming up, how it's growing. You need to monitor certain things in your poultry. You know, poultry, you cannot stay away from your poultry. Chickens cannot grow on their own. Somebody has to keep an eye. Somebody has to be there. So my encouragement is start small. You can still do it. If others are doing it, you know, there is no journey that starts with 10 steps. There is always a first step. There is always a second step. So you can start small and grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Chansa, last week you missed the training, but we were talking about risks that are involved with the business. We are talking a lot, and we were talking about the human factor, the human risk in poultry, how humans can bring disease into poultry, and the dangers of employing incompetent people onto your farm. I'm sure you don't do all the work in the poultries yourself. How do you identify people to work in your poultries, and is there any training that you offer them before they start working in your poultry? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chair. So the minimum qualification that we require, the minimum, that's the minimum, is at least someone should be grade 12 and they should be able to read and write, and then they should be trainable. Then furthermore, if they come from an agricultural institution like NRDC, UNZA, Chipembi, and whatever school that they might have gone to, they stand an added advantage. So what normally happens is that we conduct interviews, which are done, they are practical as well as theoretical interviews, as well as oral interviews that we normally conduct. Then also after that, then there's a lot of, in fact, not a bit, but there's a lot of training and knowledge that I really impart in my colleagues, or I can say my workers, or my colleagues in short. So I call them colleagues, that I really impart in them. Because to be honest with you, and to be honest with everyone, I'm rarely at the farm. Unless my wife, she's the one who is at the farm most of the time, but I'm rarely at the farm because of my busy work schedule that I have, work, and then church needs me as well. So I have to train them. In an event, they should actually work and stand in, just like the way things are supposed to be done. So that's how it has helped. In case of they do anything that really abrogates our standards, there's a warning that given. If they repeat, then I'm sorry, they just have to go, because we have no time for games, in short, because we are in business, and in business we have to make a profit. Yeah, losses are there, but we shouldn't make losses that are deliberately motivated. So at the same time, so normally it's a training, because every after 6 months, I need to train them and to update them on anything new of the technology that is on the market that has come in, so that they should be acquainted with themselves, what is going on and what is changing. And sometimes take them for refresher courses, or what can I say, a few days showgrounds. When you go to the showgrounds with them, let them not go and watch magic, let them not go and watch people on motorbikes, let them not go and watch the majorettes, but they should be visiting the agricultural stands, that they get to learn more and then try and apply that knowledge in their day-to-day activities. Thank you.
So, Mrs. Chilwa, you mentioned that you work, so probably sometime you're not around. Who takes care of the birds when you're not around? And have you provided any sort of training for the people who, is it family members, or have you employed someone who takes care of the birds when you're not around? And then even as we are, I'm looking at the clock, and time has really moved. For those who are with us on this call, I would encourage you, if you have any questions or contributions, we'll start with the messages now. You can just post your question or message in the chat, and then after we read those from the chat, we have a few more questions for our guests. After we are done with those questions, we'll be able to read those which you are going to post in the chat. So, Ms. Chilwa, Mrs. Chilwa, who does the work when you are at work? And who does the work when you're at work? And how do you balance running a business and also working? The Bible says you cannot serve two masters at a go. Clearly, you are doing it. How do you do both?
Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, like Mr. Chansa said earlier on, he said he has trained someone who stands in for some people who stand in for him, and also his wife is always there at the farm. In my case as well, I've got 2 workers at the moment working in my poultry. It's really not easy. It's really not easy. Usually with whatever I do, I always want to be there. You know, if you've got a project, you really, if you want a project maybe to succeed, to grow, you really need to find time to attend to your project. Yes, like Mr. Chansa said, if you can't be there, find someone who can be there for you. So in my case, it hasn't really been easy, because I have a few positions in the district, so I'm not stationary at one school, but I move around. So I always have less time to be present, but whenever I have time, I always make sure that I'm on my poultry. I'm always in my poultry. That's why in the first place I said, you really need to be hardworking, because every project, every business will it is not easy to balance up work and business, but it calls for hard work. It really causes. I always find that I've got 3-4 hours to sleep, because I've got all these that I need to do, all these that I need to put in place. But if you are not that kind of a person who works hard, you find everything very tiring, you know. So I'm encouraging people that are working to say, if you really need to succeed, you need to have a spirit of hard work. Spirit of hard work will help you to succeed in whatever you embark on, in whatever venture, in whatever business you embark on. Otherwise, it's not an easy thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. There's been this cry about the opportunities that are in the chicken food chain, and luckily we have somebody who has been who has done an outgrower scheme before, and they're an agent for these Zamhaj and so on and so forth. So let's talk about the opportunities that are in this business. Mr. Chansa, how did you position yourself to the point where you are? I can't explain I can't explain your portfolio very well. I think you can explain it better yourself. First and foremost, I would like you to share with us. You said you had an outgrower scheme the time you lost a couple of thousands of birds. How did that come about? How does one go about getting into such things like being an outgrower? And what are some of the requirements that one needs to have? And then how can one become an agent? Or let's say it's a feed agent, whatsoever, just positioning ourselves to benefit even more from what's there on the market. Mr. Sansa.
Thank you so much, Chair. I love the way you brought out the points. Yes, that was the day, I think the day before yesterday in the group. And possibly what is killing us as Zambians is selfishness and greediness. Because when there is an opportunity and you want your friend to succeed, most of us farmers, even at the market, it's the same thing, Chair, that happens, that we don't coordinate and see how best we can try and work together. So I got this message from a friend. So when I got it from a friend, no, this is what it is. These people have advertised on their page that they really need outgrowers. So I went and applied. That was with hybrid. So I went there and availed myself. I was took an application. Then I was called for interviews. Then they came, as you had put it, their standards that those people want. So they gave us a standard of what they wanted and what they didn't want to find at the farm. So we had to push ourselves in those lines to meet their standards. Then they came back, did the second inspection. After the farm, the poultries were cleaned. The farm was swabbed. Then the swabs went to the lab. Then actually were confirmed for a placement, and that was how we are given those beds to rear. So here's now how it works and how it starts. So when you go there, and then they tell you what you have to upgrade, because your poultries need to be standard, not a bedroom or maybe a pantry, or maybe you say, no, my kids should move to the sitting room. Then I want to start keeping broilers in their bedroom. It doesn't work. That you need to have standard poultries. I think I'll try and share how a poultry should look like for you to qualify to be an outgrower. The minimum is 10,000. 10,000, that's the minimum, because there's a number of beds that Country Choice needs per day for that plant in Chongwe to run. Even Supreme Chicken, which is also a Zamchick, they have a number of chickens that should go through the plant for them and their business to make business sense. So your farm should actually, minimum should be 10,000. That's what your farm should actually be able to hold, and in standard poultries. So They'll give you the chicks, they'll give you the feed. You have to pay for labor, medication, as well as vaccines. That is your own cost as the farmer. That's what you need to do as a farmer. So you rear those chicks. So I'm going to mention these three now: Zamchick, Supreme, and Country Choice. So for those, amongst the three, okay, the one that pays better is Country Choice amongst all the three. The one who's got understanding. No, here we look like our chicks are maybe not catching up with the weights that the target weights that we expect them to be at this week. So maybe give us a week, maybe we can catch up. Supreme Chicken will do the job for you. In terms of being fair, in terms of the supply of inputs like the feed and the chicks, Zamchick will do for you. So these are the three of them, the major that we have in this country. So when you place those chicks, the maximum number of days that you can keep them at the farm is 35 days. So at 35 days, they'll come and crop everything. Nothing should remain. And then now, those chickens that will be below 1 kg, okay, they're left behind because they can't be processed properly in the machine. The defeathering machine has challenges in processing such kind of chicks. So those remain behind, and that becomes part of your loss as a farmer. So after those chicks, for it again to make business sense, at least if your chickens are at 1.8, 1.9, 2 kg, 2.1, 2.2 at 35 days, you get good money. But if they're below those weights that those weights that I've mentioned, then you make losses. So now when they calculate now after they get the weights and what has remained and how much they are selling per kg, then calculate and multiply, then they have to remove the money for the chicks that they gave you, the money for the feed that they supplied you with, and then what remains is what you get as a farmer as your profit. If you take your chickens and they're underweight, and then when they calculate that these chickens will sell this, and then when they remove, and then your account goes into the negatives, meaning you as a farmer, you need to top up. You need to pay for those. You need to pay for that debt that you're going to have. Maybe it could be the chicks. It could be the feed. You have to offset that debt. So that's basically how they have to grow away. So people, let's not fear of going to these offices, and let's not be selfish in sharing knowledge as well as opportunities that might help someone there. So for you to be an agent, again, it's almost the same process. You go and apply. Then they'll come and check your store. And other companies, if it's Novatech, they'll then help you brand your shop. So when they assess as an agent, how busy they are an agent for them. So when you apply, they'll give an account number where you're going to deposit the money for the feed. Then they'll give you a discount. They'll give you the feed at a wholesale price that will help you sell and then make your profit out of it. So for instance, if you go with Novatech, where they give, if you look at those prices that Novatech is selling, even these other agents they are selling, so you just less a 25 kwacha from those prices. That's your profit. So per bag, you're getting a 25 kwacha profit per bag of feed. So for you again to become an agent for chicks, it's the same process again. Then what happens there is that you need to show a minimum of 1,000. Then if you show a minimum of 1,000, they're given a 5% discount. Whether it's hybrid, tiger, rose, you're given a 5% discount, and that's what you make as an agent. So the more chicks you sell, the more you're like given a commission. In short, for the chicks, it's a commission. So it's a 5% discount. That's your money. Then the rest of that money that after you remove the 5% discount is what you deposit. So if, for instance, if as we are looking at it now, okay, chicks are, let's go like here on the copper belt, roast is at 16. So meaning when you're an agent, that chick is given to you at 15.5 or 15.6. That's the price that Ross will give you. So your money there is a 14 way. So you say a minimum of 1,000, you receive that 5%. If it's less than 1,000, sorry, there's no commission there. So those are the agreements that are made and created. If one wants to become an agent for chicks, for feed, that's how it works. That's how it works. You deposit the money, they'll give you the feed. Then they'll give you the standard prices that that Novatech sells their feed at wholesale. Then from there, they'll give you the prices that they sell at retail. So every price that you see, just let's say 25 kwacha, that's your profit. That's also what you get per bag. Well, mostly even Nutris, it's the same. It's 25 kwacha as well. I think I've tried to answer just to make it clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chancellor. That was very helpful. I'm sure it was very helpful. We have a question in the chat, Mr. Alex Mlenga. He's saying, when are we going to finish feed formulation class, Chair? So, Mr. Mlenga will resume feed formulation at the Lusaka physical training. And the Kitwe, which will have the Kitwe physical training as well, coming up on the 30th. Lusaka will be on the 30th of June at Lusaka Hotel. So let's make sure that we register for the training. The training is only 200 kwacha, lunch inclusive. Ms. Chilwa, let me get back to you now. Mrs. Chilwa, yeah, I don't know if the miss. Mrs. Chilwa, just getting back to you. There is this complaint that is going around at the moment, talking about the cost of production going up and the price of the output, the birds that we are having remaining the same. Here in Lusaka, on average, maybe it's 90 kwacha per bird. They are on the copper belt, I'd say, on average, I'd say 105 or 100 kwacha. So, how do you sell your birds? How do you have customers, or how do you sell your birds? Is it as bad as people are putting it?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, it's selling. It's really a challenge. But like I said earlier on, before you venture into business, do a market research first. It's very, very, very cardinal. You know, with us, we take hold of the Chisokone market here in Kitwe. That's where most of the times I take my birds. And also the Kapoto market, that's also one of the markets that I make use of, you know. But I think the complaint of us small scale farmers, I tell you, it's really challenging. It's really challenging, more especially with these Chinese that have come on board. What I've observed is sometimes you may take your birds at the market, and then you just find, you just see maybe this Chinese truck comes with lots and lots of chickens. And, you know, you find them selling chickens at 50 kwacha, at 60 kwacha, you know. Then what do you do as a small scale farmer? What do you do with your birds? You know, you find that all the people, all the customers will flock to that truck and try to buy birds at that cheaper price. So you find that to us, it's really a big challenge. I wish we could have maybe regulations, a way of regulating the prices of those birds, because indeed you cannot be in business whilst you're making losses. That's not how it works. A business is there for us to make profits. So when you calculate the cost of production, and then you find that the cost of production is very high, higher than what you are getting, then business is not making sense. So somehow, market is there, but the challenge that we have it is the regulation of prices of these beds. You find that because of these Chinese that have come on board, prices, they are really dropping the prices badly, such that to us small scale farmers, it's really affecting us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 4 minutes before the end of our training today. At this particular point in time, I will open it up to the floor. There's a question in the chat. Good evening. Is there anyone who can help me? How to calculate the cost price a bed from day one to point of sale? How do you calculate how much it costs to rear one bed from day one to the point of sale? I'd even add rearing a bed starts before you even hit day one. It starts in preparation. So how do you calculate that? That is a question. So yeah, are there any other questions from the people on the call? These questions are not coming from the panelists. Any other questions before we call it a night? Okay, Peter, Mr. Moyo is asking, as who are in Southern Province, we shall miss feed formulation. As who are in Southern Province, we shall miss feed formulation. Yeah, and I have one more question on feed formulation for Mr. Chancellor before we call it a night. If there are no questions from the audience, but I'll still insist. How can we have all that conversation and not have a single question, an audible question? I need somebody to speak up and ask a question, either to Mr. Chancellor or Mrs. Chilwa. Let's get one for each. Let's get a question for each. And then I'll ask the final questions and then we'll call it a night. Mr. Moyo, your mic is open. Moya, Mr. Moya, sorry about that.
Thank you very much. I'm happy Mr. Chancellor is here. My question is going direct to Mr. Chancellor. I'm one person who wants to be feeding my bed with my own feed. Now, my question is, if I'm to formulate my own feed, is it possible to start giving them from day one up to the point of sale, or I'm just supposed to start somewhere on the 3rd week or so?
Okay, I'm sure he's noted that question. I've seen a hand in the chat. Mr. Kaimba Nkawe, Mr. Nkawe Kaimba, please, you can go on and ask your question.
Yes, I don't know if it is a question or, yeah, but no, I just want to ask the people on the panel there, looking at the changing of the price inflation on the markets, how can we help, or how can we advise, the farmers who are just starting the businesses, or yeah, who are starting the businesses now? How can we encourage them more? How can we help? Because each and every day we are seeing prices, they are changing. So seeing you people that you have vast knowledge in this field and you are experienced, how can you encourage and how can you help the upcoming farmers?
Okay, so yeah. I'll let Mrs. Chilwa go first, and then there's a question for you, Mrs. Chilwa. I missed the answer from Mrs. Chilwa. My question is, how much do you pay your poultry helpers? and how many birds do you keep? So that is one for Mrs. Chilwa. Yeah, and the calculation for cost per bird, we may not address it adequately in here, but it is something that we need to address as we go on. So I hope you took note of the questions which were asked. I think the one which was asked at the end can be shared by both, and then there is one for both of you. So there is one for Mr. Chansa with regards to feed formulation. When can one start giving the feed they formulate on their own? And then there is one for Mrs. Chilwa, which is how much do you pay your poultry helpers and how many birds do you keep? And then there is one for both of you, which is from Mr. Taimba, which is how can you encourage the newcomers, seeing that the cost of inputs is fluctuating almost every week. So yeah, we can address those questions, and then I think we'll call it a night.
Thank you so much. When you're looking, you really need. So finding helpers in your poultry, at least you try to look at a minimum wage. Very, very important, because that will help you not to go against the law. From the minimum wage, then you can add up whatever you can agree, depending on the work that is there, depending on the number of beds and the things that your workers will be doing. So I would encourage to say minimum wage. It's the cardinal thing that I always look at. Then I also look at the kind of jobs now that are there, so that I can help or see what else we can add on to the minimum wage. Then there was a question of the number of beds. At the moment, I'm at 850 beds. That's where I've reached. I started with 150 and I've grown up to 850 beds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chansa. When does one start giving the feed they've formulated on their own? Yeah.
So here, admin, I will not go much into details, because we need to create a cravingness for people to come for the physical training. So if we speed up the beings here, people will not come. So that we see, we demonstrate, and look at all those things that tend to happen. So I'll just give you a hint, and then I think that will answer your question. So if you are going to make your starter ration, that is not a crumble. It has to be fine as flour. Thank you.
Wow, it has to be fine as flour. Interesting. Now, as we get to a close, I'll invite a few people just to say something. These are people I've been seeing. They've been attending regularly. I'll put some people on. First and foremost, I'll invite. And this one has become a friend in business. He's a colleague, and it's the first time he's attending this training. Mr. Joseph Banda, he's just come here for the first time today. He's never joined the Zoom training, so today is your first time. How's your experience, Mr. Banda? That's the first one, and then I'll call Mrs. Maureen Chonde. She's from Kasama. She got a scale from us a few months ago. Yeah, sending money to strangers, people you've never met. How has this training been for you, Mrs. Chonde? And then, I don't know if it is Mrs. or Miss. So, Miss Maureen, yes, I'll leave it at that. And then Mr. Austin joined us for the first time last week. Yeah, so Mr. Muzi Austins, I'll call you to say a word as well. And then Mrs. Nosiku, all the way from Eastern Province, I'll ask you to say something as well. So, Mr. Alex Mlenga, I'll come to you next week. Mr. Andrew Muma, just know that you're on the list for next week to say something. Mrs. Best Adima, I believe you are in Siavonga. Next week, you'll be on the list to say something. So for today, can we have Mr. Banda, and then Miss Maureen, and then I said Mr. Who, where? The name has gotten lost. Where? Mr. Austins. Yes, Mr. Muzi Austins. I don't know. The name have you dropped out? Okay, can't see him anymore. And then Mrs. Nosiku. So I'll ask those 3 or 4 to say something, and then we close.
I can go first.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sakar. I don't know how loud I am, because right now, as I'm speaking, I'm in the poultry. You know, like the presenters have been saying, you have to be committed. I'm trying to select, or what do you call it, sort out chickens for the market tomorrow. Okay, so I think mine will be more of an encouragement in terms of the formulas I've learned from Mr. Sakala. I started this business last year. I experienced serious failures. I think nothing can be overemphasized. As important as knowledge is in this business. At one time, on a batch of 300, I lost 100. You can imagine those losses. Then I was just going through Facebook, looking at people that are into this business. Then I came across Mulamlire Farm. That's how I got in touch with Mr. Sakala. I paid for consultancy. He came through to our farm and he gave us some guidance. From that time, I think that's the formula that I've been applying, and I've increased, of course, not to a large scale. I've now increased my flock to 500. The profit is not that much, but I think I can see some marginal profit from what I'm doing. What I would encourage is let us not keep failing when people have tried different formulas and they've found a way of succeeding. And I think Mr. Sakala is one such person. At one point, I was afraid of hybrid because of the number of mortalities I would experience. But I'm on hybrid even in October because of the formula that he gave me, and I follow it religiously. It has helped me. So I'll give a practical example. So on this flock, this is a number, I have 500 beds. And let me just move to where I do the records here. So just to give you a little practical number on the mortality. So I received 512 because of the extras. This is, tomorrow there will be exactly 6 weeks. I've lost 17 from 500, which is not bad, because previously I would lose more beds than this number. And I think the formula that I received from Mr. Sakala is working very well. So I would encourage people to try out some of these things from people that have succeeded. It's very helpful, and it will help you and hedge you against trying out your own things, which may lead into losses. I think that's what I can say, Mr. Sakala. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banda. Miss Maureen. Yes, Maureen, are you there? Okay, seems Maureen is unable to unmute for some reason. Mrs. Nospiku, are you there? Miss,
Okay, wait, first. What is an ifi? I mean, together, I am getting sick.
Miss Nosiku,
Nothing like you.
all right, so we only had Mr. Vanda, who was not shy to say something, but would like to say thank you very much to those who made it to today's training session. Okay, there's one. Okay, yeah, so Mrs. Chilo has left us. She has another meeting at 20 hours. So, yeah, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We can continue our conversations in the group. So, this is our last in this training cycle for Zoom. This is our last, so we need to start doing the registration for Zoom. And as we said on the group, those who have registered for the physical training will take it as those have automatically registered for this cycle. There will be no need for them to pay the 10 kwachas for this month. But for those who are outside Lusaka, those who want to be at the training, you are going to have to pay the 10 kwachas. Thank you so much to our guests, Mr. Chansa and Mrs. Esther Chilwa. Thank you so much for the knowledge which you have shared with us. We are looking forward to having more of such conversations, even as we keep on growing. Thank you so much. We'll continue our conversations in the group. Thank you.
Thank you, admin.
Okay.